Hey kids, welcome back to another Wednesday devotion. Our story is going to come from Acts chapter 16, verses 16 to 40, and we're going to be talking about Paul and Silas today. Now, Paul and Silas were thrown into prison for spreading the good news about Jesus. After they were thrown in prison, the prison guard was commanded to guard them very carefully. So he put them in the inner cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. So, around midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was a violent earthquake. It was huge, and the foundations of the prison were shaken, and all at once, all the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. The jailer woke up, and he thought that he was done for. He thought that all the prisoners had escaped, but Paul shouted, "We're all here. None of us left." When the jailer realized that none of the prisoners had escaped, he fell before Paul and Silas trembling, and he asked, "What must I do to be saved?" And they replied, "Believe in Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household." And they spoke the word of the Lord to him, and all the members of his house believed, and they all were saved. Now, Paul and Silas, they didn't have a Bible, because Bibles weren't really written yet, and they didn't have smartphones like we do today, so they just had to know the good news of God. So that takes us to our memory verse for this week, which is 1 Peter 3:15, and it says, "Always be ready to give an answer to anyone who asks you about the hope you have." Now, I have a little illustration that you guys can reference and use when someone asks you about the good news of God. I call this the bridge illustration because on one side is us and on the other side is God. And there's a gap in between us, and that gap is sin. Because we have sinned, that puts a distance between us and God. Well, God really wanted to close that gap because he just loves us so much, so he sent Jesus down, and Jesus, who is fully God and fully human, came, lived a sinless life, and he died on the cross for us. And Jesus becomes that bridge between us and God. Jesus takes away our sin because he loves us so much so that we are able to have a relationship with God. Now, I encourage you guys to use this illustration and to try and learn how to draw it so that you can share it with all of your friends and your family, and then you can do exactly what the Bible verse tells us to do, which is to always have an answer for anyone who asks about the hope that you have. Thank you guys for joining me with this lesson, and don't forget to do the rest of your packet and check back in on Sunday for your mini children's sermon.